Nearly 2 miles long, made of Kevlar and marine-grade PVC, this barrier is one of the longest in Mexico. And it's this Cancun resort's first line of defence against Sargassum, a type of seaweed that's become the bane of Mexican Riviera and Caribbean resorts for a decade. Here, 40 people work 12 hours a day, all year long, to keep this beach clear of sargassum and seagrass. Managing the problem takes a huge amount of work, which is only possible for some of the most upscale resorts in popular tourist destinations, like this one.
When you have the massive arrivals of sargassum, they alter all the view, the water turns brown, it's smelly, you have flies and other insects.
This resort is among the most ambitious in the region, with one of the most comprehensive strategies to monitor, block, and remove sargassum to keep it away from tourists who expect pristine beaches. Around 7 a.m. each morning, before many guests wake up, the team heads out to determine which areas need attention. Ideally, sargassum can be removed before it reaches the beach. That's a key benefit of this barrier, which is made of hundreds of balloons attached to underwater nets. Using harvester boats, staff can collect sargassum that gets stuck behind the barrier before it starts to mix with sand or decompose and smell like rotten eggs. But it's impossible to isolate all the sargassum to the sea. What the barrier also does is divert the sargassum from beaches frequented by guests to the edges of the property. These are called sacrifice zones, and each morning they're full of seaweed that's gotten stuck behind the barriers and drifted to either side. Because they're at the far edges of the property, most tourists don't go near this.
Tenemos el horario de 7 de la mañana a 7 de la noche. Si tenemos mucho sargazo acumulado dentro de en las zonas de sacrificio, es donde más dedicamos tiempo para poder sacar todo el sargazo. Y dependiendo qué tanto sargazo haya dentro de la propiedad, es la maquinaria que vamos a utilizar.
The team has smaller equipment for central areas where guests are more likely to walk, like these 3 Barber surf rakes and 6 Sandman machines. Everything these machines collect is dumped into these trucks, and the team records how much they collect at the end of each day. While the Sargasso Sea was historically contained to the Atlantic by ocean currents, shifting wind patterns and currents have pushed much of this seaweed to land. Now it impacts millions of residents and tourists who travel to some of the world's most popular beaches. Cancun, for instance, gets more than 7 million tourists per year.
Now it also reaches Central America, and last year it went all the way up to the Azores Islands. So it's changing the distribution, and it's affecting over 30 countries and territories.
Most resorts hire companies to dispose of their sargassum, but those companies often leave it in garbage dumps or the jungle, where it can leach toxic chemicals. It's also a problem because all the sand mixed in with the sargassum is lost from the beach. This resort, on the other hand, dries its seaweed and brings it here, to this custom-designed machine that separates the dried mixture into sand and trash. And a lot of dust. This sand is extremely valuable because Cancun's beaches have been receding for years. To give tourists the best views, many of the area's hotels were built very close to the beach. But coastal sand dunes naturally shift, and storms and rising sea levels have led to significant erosion on the area's beaches. And tractors like this one, while necessary to clean up the seafront, end up removing even more sand from the beach.
If the sargassum is removed fresh by hand, then the quantity of sand is little. But if you use heavy machinery to do it, about 40 to 90% can be sand. And most of the hotels and municipalities take it inland. They don't place it in the same beach where it was recovered, so that sand is lost forever.
But if you wait for the sargassum mixture to dry, you can get that sand back. And because the sand removed from this machine contains bits of decomposed sargassum, it's high in nutrients, and hotel staff use it to grow plants that are used to reforest the beach in front of the hotel. Over the past decade, the resort has managed to re-establish some stretches of beach that had eroded to near nothing, which made it challenging for guests to enjoy the coastline.
Mes con mes hacemos perfiles de playa para ver cuánto hemos ganado o perdido de playa, tanto en altura como en amplitud, a lo largo del tiempo.
¿Cuántos viajes llevamos de sargazo?
Y si hemos perdido arena en un lugar en específico, lo que hacemos es devolverla en esas zonas.
Over the past decade, they've added about 80 feet of beach in some areas, and that's made it much easier for guests to walk the full length of the property.
Al ser un hotel de gran turismo, por tanto también tenemos una buena extensión de playa y en ese aspecto también es muy importante mantenerlo en buenas condiciones.
Work increases as the sargassum levels pick up over the summer, but every year is different. 2019 saw the most sargassum. This year, it's arriving a bit later. Researchers believe that may be due to unusually weak winds earlier in the year, but in the past few months, sargassum levels have been rising steadily. Researchers track it each year using satellites, which show the seaweed drifting in from the Atlantic to the Caribbean. As sargassum levels pick up, maintaining the equipment gets increasingly important to preserve clean beaches for summer tourists. Every day, staff check that the barrier is still fully inflated and nothing has gotten stuck in it. They have backup segments, so they can patch anything that is broken and swap it out.
Mi función básicamente es supervisar que no haya ningún tipo de animal atrapado cuando cosechamos sargazo. Y además, todos los días se supervisa la barrera para que no haya ningún tipo de daño tanto en los globos como en las redes.
The tractors also require constant maintenance, since the combination of sand and saltwater does lots of damage.
La parte más difícil me parece que es la humedad. Se gasta muchísimo en refacciones y se invierte muchísimo tiempo a la hora de recuperar esas máquinas.
Even with all this effort, there is still some sargassum on the beach, particularly towards the edges of the property, and in the early morning before crews get started. But it does make a big difference in what guests experience when they come to Cancun.